There's a difference between people knowing something exists and people changing their behavior because of it. That's really the story of entertainment right now. On the surface, this week looked like a lot of headlines. Spider-Man crossed $1 billion at historic speed. The Odyssey crossed $1 billion through a completely different engine. Universal passed $4 billion globally. GTA 6 is acting like it already launched, even though consumers cannot play it yet. Disney is bringing TikTok creator culture into Disney+. Ariana Grande took over Spotify. Love Island delivered a huge finale week. So yes, there was a lot of activity, but activity is not the point. The point is that the entertainment business is getting better at moving audiences from one behavior to another, from awareness to search, from search to ticket purchase, from ticket purchase to premium format, from theatrical to streaming, from fandom to product, from product back into the franchise. That loop is the story. And I think this is where a lot of industry conversations still get too simple. Awareness is not demand. Interest is not intent. And intent is not behavior. Behavior is when someone actually does something. They buy the ticket. They choose IMAX. They pre-order the game. They stream the song again. They buy the toy. They search the character. They enter the ecosystem. That's what matters. As we close the summer blockbuster window, the market is entering a sorting moment. Not a crisis moment. Not a theatrical is dead moment. We've had enough of those. This is more interesting. It is a moment where the market is separating properties that are simply familiar from properties that are behaviorally alive. And those are not the same thing. A familiar brand can still open soft. A huge trailer can still become a vanity metric. A consumer products program can still sit on shelves if the audience does not feel a reason to participate. But when the audience memory is strong, when the campaign creates urgency, when the format matters, when the product ecosystem is ready, when the timing feels culturally right, then you get a very different kind of response. That is what we saw this week. Let's start with theatrical, because Spider-Man, Brand New Day, and The Odyssey both crossed $1 billion globally. But they did not get there the same way. And that's what makes this useful. If you only look at the headline, both stories look similar. Big movie, big number, global audience, theatrical is back. Fine, but the audience behavior underneath those two movies is very different. Spider-Man is franchise demand moving at maximum speed. This is what happens when years of character equity, fan memory, cast interest, event positioning, and marketing urgency all convert at once. The key word is convert, not awareness. Conversion. People already knew Spider-Man existed. That was never the question. The question was whether that awareness would turn into immediate theatrical action. And it did. Crossing $1 billion worldwide in 6 days tells us this was not only a large fan base showing up, it was a coordinated global behavior. Audiences decided, almost at the same time, that this was something they needed to see, now. Not later, not on streaming, not when it was convenient. Now. That is the highest value behavior in theatrical. Urgency. And that is why Spider-Man is such an important case study. The entertainment business sometimes talks about franchise strength as if it is static, as if a franchise is strong because people recognize the logo. That is not enough anymore. Franchise strength is active when it changes what people do. Spider-Man did that. It moved people from awareness to ticket purchase almost immediately, and then the momentum held beyond opening weekend. That is the other important part. A massive opening is one signal. Sustained first-week momentum is another. That tells you the campaign did not only front-load demand, it activated a broader audience wave. Core fans, casual fans, global audiences, premium screen urgency, social conversation. That is why this kind of run becomes bigger than box office. It becomes participation. And when a movie becomes participation, the ceiling changes. Then you have The Odyssey. And The Odyssey is fascinating because it is not working through the same engine. This is not franchise velocity. This is filmmaker equity, premium presentation, theatrical trust, and the idea that the movie itself is an experience worth leaving home for. With Spider-Man, the audience is pulled by franchise urgency. With The Odyssey, the audience is pulled by event craftsmanship. The Christopher Nolan factor matters here, not because every filmmaker can do this, most cannot, but because Nolan has trained audiences to believe that the theatrical format is part of the product. For most films, theatrical is a window. For Nolan, theatrical is part of the value proposition. That changes the audience decision. People do not only ask, do I want to see this movie? They ask, how should I see this movie? That is a huge difference. Once the consumer is thinking about format, the movie has already moved beyond passive interest. Now the audience is making an experience decision. IMAX, premium large format, best screen, best sound. That is why the Odyssey continuing to hold this deep into its run is so meaningful. It is not only that it opened well, it is that it retained attention in a crowded market. It kept holding even as new competition arrived. That tells us the demand was not only launch-driven, it was durable. And durability is one of the most important signals in the current market. A lot of movies can create noise for 3 days. Fewer can create behavior for several weeks. The Odyssey did. And Universal passing 4 billion globally matters because it shows that a studio can win with multiple theatrical engines, not one. A franchise engine, a filmmaker engine, a premium format engine, a family engine, a horror engine, a licensing engine. A slate works best when those engines do not all depend on the same audience behavior. That is the bigger takeaway. The theatrical market is not dead. It is fragmented by motivation. Different audiences need different reasons to leave home. For Spider-Man, the reason is event participation. For the Odyssey, the reason is premium experience and filmmaker trust. For family films, it may be shared outing behavior. For horror, it may be communal tension. For gaming adaptations, it may be authenticity. The mistake is assuming all theatrical demand comes from one place. It does not. The strongest releases are the ones that understand the specific behavior they are trying to create. That matters when we look ahead. Because the next wave of theatrical releases is not only competing for awareness, they are competing for behavior. PAW Patrol, the Dino movie, may not be the biggest theatrical title on the calendar, but from a consumer products perspective, it has one of the cleanest demand paths. Parents know what to search for. Kids know what to ask for. Retailers know how to merchandise it. Dinomobile HQ, Megasaurus vehicles, Rex plush, pup vehicles, and roleplay sets. Those are specific purchase behaviors. And this is a reminder that box office ceiling and consumer products value do not always move together. A film can be mid-sized theatrically and still be very powerful commercially if it creates clear search-to-purchase behavior. For PAW Patrol, the movie is not only a theatrical event. It is a catalyst. It refreshes the shelf. It gives parents a reason to buy the next thing. That same distinction applies across the upcoming slate. The Cat in the Hat has recognition, but the campaign has to make it feel fresh enough for families to act now. Resident Evil and Street Fighter have gaming awareness, but game recognition is not the same as movie demand. The core fan asks, is this authentic? The casual audience asks, why should I care? The Hunger Games, Sunrise on the Reaping, is important because the book-to-screen loop is already active. The fan base is already reading, debating, searching, and revisiting the mythology. The consumer products halo is not toy-driven. It is identity-driven. Books, tie-in editions, jewelry, apparel, cosplay, and symbolic objects. The key question is whether publishing momentum becomes opening weekend urgency. Because fandom activity is not automatically ticket-buying behavior, the campaign has to make the movie feel like the next essential chapter, not another adaptation. In a crowded market, audiences are constantly deciding what they can skip. The strongest franchise campaigns make the audience feel like skipping means missing the moment. That is what Avengers Doomsday will try to do at the highest scale. Avengers has the clearest blockbuster mechanics ahead. Doctor Doom, the crossover event, Marvel nostalgia, character convergence, and consumer products people immediately understand. The question is not whether people are aware. Of course they are. The question is whether the campaign can make the event feel culturally necessary. After a period where Marvel has had to rebuild some audience trust, that necessity matters. It cannot simply be big, it has to feel consequential. Dune, Part 3, is a different kind of event. Its commercial power sits in premium format, collector behavior, cultural seriousness, and world immersion. This is a franchise where the audience behavior is more about prestige participation, the desire to see it properly, to be part of a serious cinematic event, to engage with the world as culture, not just content. Then there is Hexed. And I keep coming back to Hexed because it represents something the industry needs right now. Original IP with franchise potential. That is difficult. Early interest is there. People are curious about the world, the cast, Billy, Hex, and the idea of a Disney witch movie. The consumer products upside is easy to imagine. But right now, the demand is still mostly conceptual. People are asking, what is this? That is not a bad place to start. But the next phase has to move the audience to a different question. Not, what is this movie? But, who is my favorite character? What is that world? What is that product? Where can I buy that? That is when original IP starts becoming commercially alive. A world is not enough. Characters have to become sticky. Symbols have to become recognizable. Products have to become nameable. That is the bridge Hexed has to cross. Streaming showed the same pattern in a different form. Netflix had scale with 72 Hours, which held the top movie spot with more than 40 million hours watched globally, and ranked #1 in more than 50 countries. That is broad platform behavior. Demon Slayer entered the global top 10 with almost 9 million hours in a partial release week, even though it was only available in select Asian markets. That is concentrated fandom behavior. Anime continues to be one of the clearest examples of global audience intensity, not just volume, intensity. The audience follows the property across formats: theatrical, streaming, merchandise, music, events, and characters. And when Demon Slayer moves platforms, the audience moves with it. Ted Lasso is also interesting because the return is not only nostalgia. The premise is widening around a women's football team. That matters. A returning show has two possible paths. It can reactivate the old audience, or it can expand the audience architecture. Ted Lasso has a chance to do the second. The nostalgia gets people back in. The new premise gives the franchise a reason to keep moving. A returning franchise can not only ask people to remember how much they liked it, it has to give them a reason to form a new habit. Streaming is habit behavior. Theatrical is often urgency. Streaming is often routine. A show wins when it becomes part of the viewer's rhythm. That is why Love Island USA's finale week on Peacock is so meaningful. Almost 2 billion minutes watched in the US during the final week. Season up double digits versus last season. That is not only content consumption, that is appointment behavior inside streaming. Reality can still do that very well. There is a social penalty to being behind. You want to know who won before the conversation expires. A lot of streaming is catch-up behavior. Love Island is now behavior. Disney Plus had a different kind of movement with The Devil Wears Prada 2. The title arrived on Disney Plus and immediately drove 15 million views in 5 days, becoming the #1 overall title in more than 70 countries. What stands out is the conversion from theatrical momentum and nostalgia into immediate streaming viewing. This is where the old theatrical versus streaming debate becomes too simple. Because in many cases, theatrical does not weaken streaming, it strengthens it. The theatrical window creates cultural memory. Streaming captures the next behavior. Someone sees the movie, someone talks about it, someone remembers the original, someone watches at home, someone searches the fashion. The ecosystem compounds. Not theatrical versus streaming, theatrical into streaming, streaming into fandom, fandom into search, search into product, product back into engagement. Music gave us another version of this. Ariana Grande released new music and immediately took over Spotify. That is fanbase activation. Major artist, large audience, new album, immediate streaming concentration. But the more interesting music story to me is Closer, because Closer, jumping 57 spots on Spotify's top songs global, is not a normal new release story. It is memory becoming behavior. The song is tied to a very specific cultural moment, a particular era of pop, a particular online memory, a particular emotional texture. And this week, nostalgia had a current trigger. The 10th anniversary brought the song back into conversation. The Chainsmokers' Lollapalooza performance gave it a live event boost, and suddenly, cultural memory turned into Spotify behavior. People did not just remember the song, they streamed it. That is the difference. Nostalgia is not valuable because people have warm feelings. It is valuable when those feelings become action: a rewatch, a stream, a ticket, a post, a purchase, a playlist. Without the action, nostalgia is sentiment. With the action, nostalgia is demand. Gaming may be the clearest example of where this is all heading. GTA 6 is behaving less like a game release and more like a global entertainment event. Take-Two said pre-orders have been unprecedented and far above internal expectations since orders opened June 25th. There are outside estimates suggesting massive pre-order volume and potential value in the billions. Whether every outside estimate proves exact is almost beside the point. The behavior is the signal. People are committing months before they can play. That is extraordinary. GTA 6 is not simply generating awareness. Everyone is aware. It is generating commercial action before availability. Pre-order behavior is not casual interest. It is future purchase already converted. And GTA is doing this before release, before reviews, before gameplay is in consumers' hands. That is franchise trust at an enormous scale. But the even more interesting move is the Netflix partnership. The next look at GTA 6 is becoming a streaming event. Rockstar is premiering Grand Theft Auto 6, an extended look on Netflix with a 6-hour window before it reaches Rockstar's YouTube channel and website. Think about that. A game marketing asset is being programmed like premium entertainment. That is not a normal trailer drop. That is appointment viewing. For Netflix, it is a way to get closer to gaming culture as an attention platform. For Rockstar, It turns a marketing beat into an entertainment event. We are going to see more of this. Trailers becoming programming, game reveals becoming streaming events, creator reactions becoming part of distribution. The marketing asset itself becomes content. And when the marketing asset becomes content, the audience journey starts earlier. Disney and TikTok are moving in a different direction, but it connects to the same ecosystem. Disney is bringing selected TikTok creators into Disney Plus through approved characters, scenes, and assets from franchises like Marvel, Pixar, and Star Wars. Some of those creator videos will appear inside Disney Plus through the vertical video Verts feed. This is more important than it may look. Disney Plus has traditionally been a place to consume Disney content: movies, series, libraries, franchises. But with creator videos inside the platform, Disney Plus starts to become a place where fan culture can surface too. That changes the function of the platform. It is not just viewing, it is discovery. It is not just official content, it is curated participation. And for Disney, that matters because a lot of franchise energy happens outside the owned ecosystem. TikTok, YouTube, Instagram, Reddit, Discord, fan edits, reaction videos, cosplay, memes, and analysis. Disney is trying to bring some of that energy back inside the walls. Not all of it, that would be impossible, but enough to create a loop. A creator video leads to a clip leads to a movie leads to a series. Streaming platforms are going to become less like shelves and more like ecosystems. Collaborations are another version of audience movement. A lot of people still treat collaborations as marketing stunts. Some are. But the best ones are behavioral bridges. They move an audience from one context to another, from celebrity to grocery, from music to sport, from film to travel, from fantasy to beauty. Sydney Sweeney and Erewhon is easy to dismiss if you only see it as another celebrity smoothie. But Erewhon has quietly become one of the clearest examples of retail as media. The product is not just a product, it is content, a social object, and a limited-time participation moment. Talent gets a consumer touchpoint outside film, television, or a traditional endorsement. And Erewhon converts celebrity attention into location-based consumer behavior. Lego and the X-Files shows the continued commercial value of older IP when the product format is right. The X-Files is not a current mainstream franchise in the way Marvel or Spider-Man is. But Lego does not need the whole general audience. It needs enough concentrated demand from the right audience. Because the set originated from a fan submission and vote, Lego had a demand signal before launch. This was not just a brand deciding to revive something. It was a fan base indicating interest in a specific product expression. Not by forcing it back into the center of culture, by giving the existing audience a premium object that validates their attachment. That is collector behavior. Travis Kelce and Six Flags turns fandom into a visitation and season pass conversion mechanism. That is the behavior, not awareness of Six Flags. Most people know Six Flags. The goal is to create a reason to act. Enter, visit, buy the pass, plan the trip. The best celebrity partnerships are not only about borrowed fame. They connect fame to a measurable consumer action. The FC Barcelona, Spotify, and Ed Sheeran partnership moves across music fandom, sports fandom, merchandise, live events, travel, and streaming. That is not only sponsorship, it is audience transfer. Universal's Minions and Monsters activation with Prince Hotels in Japan gives audiences a way to physically enter the world while the movie is active. For family IP especially, that can be powerful. Kids do not only want to watch the world. They want to visit it, eat it, wear it, sleep in it, and play inside it. Sheglam and The Lord of the Rings takes us into beauty, which is becoming a more important licensing category for entertainment IP. The easy version is putting a logo on a palette. The better version is translating the visual language of a world into usable products that also feel collectible. Middle-earth has that advantage. It lets fans perform identity in a more subtle way. Not everyone wants to wear a giant franchise logo, but they may want a product that feels connected to the world. That is a different kind of fandom expression. So when you step back from the week, the pattern becomes clear. Entertainment is no longer moving in a straight line. It is not theatrical, then streaming, then merchandise. It is all happening at once. A movie drives a song. A game reveal becomes a Netflix event. A TikTok creator becomes a Disney Plus discovery tool. A theatrical launch becomes a hotel package. A legacy show becomes a Lego collector set. A streaming reality finale becomes appointment viewing. A premium format release becomes part of the product itself. This is the ecosystem now. And the companies that win are not the ones with the most headlines. They are the ones that understand which behavior they are trying to create. That is why I am spending more time over the next few weeks on two bigger frameworks. One is the franchise theatrical release framework and the broader transmedia ecosystem. Because the question of when to bring a franchise back is not as simple as waiting a certain number of years. The real question is whether the audience is behaviorally ready. Do they remember the property in the right way? Is the franchise rested or fatigued? Is the product ecosystem ready? Is there a new reason to care? Is the cultural timing right? Is there a format or transmedia loop that can support it? That is the actual question. Bringing back a franchise too early can feel unnecessary. Bringing it back too late can lose momentum. But bringing it back at the right behavioral moment can unlock a much bigger return. The second area is premium moviegoing. Premium formats are not just an upsell anymore, they are becoming part of the demand equation. For certain movies, premium is not the expensive version of the ticket, it is the reason to buy the ticket now. IMAX, Dolby, 4DX, PLF, and other formats are increasingly shaping how audiences perceive urgency, value, and theatrical necessity. The format can tell the audience, this is not the same as watching at home. That matters, because the biggest competitor to theatrical is not always another movie. Sometimes it is convenience, streaming, waiting, doing something else. Premium formats help fight that by making the experience feel scarce, better, specific, worth planning for. But not every movie benefits equally. The audience has to believe the format adds value. That belief is the demand driver. And that brings me back to the opening idea. The entertainment industry is not short on awareness. Actually, we may have too much awareness. Too many trailers, too many drops, too many announcements, too many partnerships, too many headlines. The scarce thing is not attention. The scarce thing is action. Getting people to do something. Spider-Man got people to act immediately. The Odyssey got people to choose the theatrical experience. GTA 6 got people to commit before release. Love Island got people to stay current. Demon Slayer got fans to move platforms. The Devil Wears Prada 2 turned nostalgia and theatrical momentum into streaming behavior. Closer turned memory into streams. Disney and TikTok are trying to turn creator culture into platform discovery. Lego turned X-Files fandom into a collector product. Minions and Monsters turned a film opening into a hotel experience. That is the through line, not buzz, behavior. And I think that is the lens the industry needs more than ever. Because the next phase of entertainment will not be won by the properties people simply recognize. It will be won by the properties people move for, buy for, search for, watch now, share, collect, visit, wear, play, and come back to. That is the difference between IP that exists and IP that is alive. That is what I'm watching. It was not one big story this week. It was the same story showing up across the entire ecosystem. The audience is still there. The money is still there. The demand is still there. But the bar is higher. You have to give people a reason to act. Not someday. Now.